Well, welcome everyone to the next edition of the DFS Down Under show here, presented by Draftstars. Draftstars are Australia's #1 Australia daily fantasy platform, offering Australian and New Zealand customers the win big on AFL daily fantasy. I'm Smatho. This is Big Hef. That way, sorry. Welcome to all of our viewers who are watching us live on the stream. If not, you watch the replay. Well, thank you for swapping by. We're looking at AFL round 10. The Lions and the Tigers up in the Gabba. And as I bring in the Big Hef here, mate, I've got news for you straight away. All right.
Ooh.
You don't know about this news. So as some viewers may know or may not know, we live in Hobart. We actually live in the same council area, as they say, and just wandered into our local GP area where it houses a dentist. And the dentist pulls me over, right, sees my Draftstars hat, and says, "Oh, mate, you do the fantasy stuff, boys." So, yeah, mate, yeah, me and Hef. Funny you should say that. I saw Hef the other day in my dentistry, and he has some great stories for you. So, as I bring in the Big Hef, tell me, mate, the man with the chompers, the white teeth, he's had a look at your teeth. What did he say?
Well, yeah, I hadn't been for a long time, and you know how you sit down there and you get the glasses. They give you the glasses because it's all the lights are on or whatever else, and I sort of lay back and I opened my mouth, and he grabbed the glasses off me and goes, "Christ, I'll be needing these ones," and put them on himself, and then proceeded to just slice me open from every way, a decent old clean. So he did say the teeth were beautiful and healthy, Smatho, which I'm sure you'll be very proud of. But yeah, dentist, geez, is there a worse place to go?
But there are some worse places. Look, I need to go to my dentist. I actually saw him, but I said I need to book in quite soon to see if your teeth can be like that. Then I might have to jump in one day and get my teeth done. But enough about that. We're going better than the little birdie guys tonight. But we are here, thanks to Draftstars. We are here to talk about AFL daily fantasy. But before we talk about Friday night fixture, we do need to give a bit of a shout out to our latest golden ticket winners who managed to come into the live event, the $300,000 AFL live event. As I bring up the boys here and the girls, there might be some girls in this one who won their way into the live final. Chook up, Tommy's Guns, gone the double here. Hill Dog 53, who is a Tassie bloke, I do believe. B3 23, Eagle Hunter, Cuzzo DXT 0001, Westgate, Carlton 2650. Congratulations to you guys for winning a Draftstars golden ticket. There'd be 2 thumbs up for you. Well done. Looking forward to seeing you guys at the live event. Now, since we've done the old zinger here with your teeth, mate, let's get straight into some footy, Dave. You just sit there, just look at your teeth as your gums are still bleeding. I take it from the other day. So
he did say that show must have really good lighting, which is correct.
That is correct. Now, what we're talking about here is the $75,000 AFL Lions versus Tigers, a $15 entry fee, $7,415 first prize, a 7:50 p.m. start. As we all know, there are golden tickets also available at $2 and the $50 contest at the Draftstars lobby. So make sure you get to draftstars.com.au for that. As for this particular match, the Lions are favourites at $1.40 for this one. The Lions 16.5, and the total is a respectable 159.5. Partly cloudy conditions in Brisbane. There might be slight dew at this time of year. It's starting to get a little bit cooler up in the northern state there. As for the team news, for the Tigers, they've rested Ryan Mansell. Seb Ross is in the side. He was the sub last week, but he's going to be playing full-time on Friday night. James Madden, the Irishman, comes in for the Lions with Darcy Gardner and Ryan Lester, both suffering some long-term injuries last week. Have any initial thoughts for those changes from the teams?
Not really. I assume Madden's going to fill that position down back. Coleman was the sub last week and did come on for Leicester. Jack Ross was unused as the sub for Richmond, and he's into the 22 there with Mansell going out. Not really light for light there, so maybe someone has to spend a little bit more time back. I did notice Nick Vlaston had a couple of centre bounce appearances last week, but maybe that's a bit less likely with Ross into the team.
Now, we use the tools on dailyfantasyrankings.com.au, Australia's #1 resource for AFL daily fantasy. the cheat sheets, the data tools. They're all free to use at dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. And I jumped on there earlier today and looked up the points against notes that we use throughout this particular show, and then comes up with these following 5 points. So the first one, the Lions are last in the league for uncontested possession. So they get the ball, but they don't have much possessions at all. The Tigers give up the third highest possessions in the league in the last 5 games, which is a nifty tool there. The Lions are only giving up 72 fantasy points to the Rucks. So that's actually 11th in the league. If you look at an overall picture, the Lions do give up a lot to Rucks, but the last 5, they're tightening it right in. So I don't think it's a fait accompli in the Rucks there. The Tigers are still giving up the most fantasy points to backs, which are third in the league. And both teams are very evenly matched through the midfield. And thank you to Mark for saying that these tools are the best in the business. Thank you, mate. So with that in mind, $75,000 contest. What are your initial thoughts here on this particular matchup on Friday night?
These two have had a little bit of a rivalry the last couple of years. Obviously, Richmond's managed to knock off Brisbane up there, and then Brisbane did the same to Richmond. Injuries, we know, have been a bit of the talk there with the Tigers, but they stormed home to win last week. I think Brisbane probably deserve to be favourites. I'd be more confident that Brisbane are going to dominate the ball more so than getting the win. There's something about this Tigers team that backs to the wall and the way they play. Any dewy conditions will sort of suit them as well. But yeah, I think a lot of those numbers do point to a pretty good spot for the Lions here.
All right, well, let's bring up the Draftstars lobby and get straight into this particular contest. Lions versus Tigers here. So we always start here with the ruck position. So 3 options here available. The 2 main ruckmen here are Toby Nankervis at 12,550 and Oscar McInerney at 9,390. And then Smoking Joe Danaher, who does attend centre bounces for ruck contests. He's available at 11,660. Immediately, I am drawn to Toby Nankervis here, who, apart from his 68 against the Cats, he's going pretty well here. 107, 95, 91, 119, 101 in those 6 matches there. So it gives him a nice 6-game average here of 96.8. He's up against the Big O, who at 9,390, look, nice scores there around the 70 mark and 80 there back on the 24th of April. But there is quite a significant price difference between these two. Straight away, Hef, I am leading Nankervis if he continues on his 100-point merry way. But what are your thoughts on these particular guys here?
It's a funny one because we're conditioned the last few years to avoid rucks against Brisbane and play rucks against Richmond. And it seems to have flipped on its head. You brought up those numbers, last 5 that Brisbane have tightened up against the rucks. This interesting 86 a game they average over the course of the season. That's even including the last 5 average of only 72. So they were getting really opened up early on, bringing that back a bit. But on the flip side, Nankervis only giving up 9 under the league average, which is the 4th stingiest in the competition. So that's a total reversal to what we're used to. The numbers say that Nankervis is the man. I think it's pretty close. I also don't think you can discount Danaher particularly. I think if you're keen on Brisbane having a big performance, then maybe you might want to use Danaher if you're not a big Oscar fan. Another week. It seems like we're getting a few of these weeks where I'm not really taken by any of the ruck options. I'm going to lean to whoever fits my bill the best. Oh, yeah. I'd have Danaher clearly 3rd pick, but I find it hard to split Nankervis and the Big O, to be honest.
Yes or no, would you have a double ruck stack?
Oh, Oscar's a forward there too. I wouldn't say no to it, actually.
No.
I think they're both reasonably priced there. Like Nankervis, if you talk about that 6-game average there at 96, it's nearly 8x his salary. And McInerney's only got to get to 75 to do the same. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't say no to a ruck stack. I wouldn't be diving into it, but, yeah, I wouldn't turn you off it in this case.
All right. Let's go. I'm going to go with Toby Nankervis. If he does give you that 9,800 plus, then, yeah, he smashes value. So that's not too bad there. Let's move on to the backs. Now, we do highlight on many of these shows that we talk about Richmond back so you can target the opposition here. Unfortunately, the Lions, they get a bump. They will get a bump in this particular matchup, but in terms of options, they're not really that many to really target here. Obviously, Daniel Richard takes all the kickouts, is at 13,980. And then Graham Birchall, who's been playing pretty well, but his price has gone up to 12,100. 85 game average over the last 6 games, 100 3-game average there. Obviously, they're the two standouts. Let's start the Lions. You looking at these two to chuck them into your team, or are we going to be looking a little bit cheaper as well?
Well, Rich is definitely the obvious. It's rare we've seen him up this high, but the scores are there, the matchups there. He is the guy that distributes the ball for Brisbane in a team that they don't. There's not many options. We sort of had some tough times last year talking about Brisbane games when we were looking to use some of their backs in our lineups, and they didn't have a whole lot on offer for us. So Rich stands out, much like Tommy Stewart stood out for Geelong in the past couple of shows we've done. Priced up, but I think he's definitely playable. Rich. Birchall, like you say, his price is up over 12,000 now. He does fit the bill in terms of uncontested ball. If you go and have a look at his game log, you'll notice it's not the tackles where he's getting the scores, that's for sure. He's got 2 tackles all year. You see those mark numbers, kick and mark numbers are superb, and that's what we're finding is coming up big against Richmond. So initial thoughts would be that 12,000 price tag's expensive. Dig a little bit deeper, I think it's pretty reasonable in this matchup. The other guys have come in off some pretty big scores against Gold Coast in an absolute flogging, which has boosted their price up a bit. Adams and Starcevic, who've been on our radar at certain times, more around the $6,000-7,000 mark. So I'm not overly keen to dig into those guys, but you know, the pricing's got it right. I think Rich and Birchall are the 2 clear ones there for Brisbane, which is not telling anyone they don't know, is it, Smatho?
No, that's correct. All right, let's talk about the Tigers then. There is some good options here as well. They're around that same price tag. So Jordan Short, 12,760. Basher Hooley, his price just doesn't budge here at 11,640. And then Liam Baker off his 118 last week, 11,250. So I'll start with Baker because his role's been changing for the Tigers from week to week. So sometimes he's up forward now, sometimes he's on the halfback on the wing. He's on the back line, you reckon, this week, or do we have to tread carefully with that particular production?
Last week, he attended 18 centre bounces, Baker. You look at the team, Mansell goes out. We talked about Ross coming in, so it's sort of a midfielder for a defender. With I did mention maybe Voston. He had a little bit of time in the middle. He's probably go back. You have to wonder if Baker's the other guy. We know of him as a halfback flanker, whether they look to use Ross in the middle of the ground and then they drop Baker back. But one thing in Baker's favour, he was superb last week, and he was one of the key drivers to their comeback, the Tigers. So if he has that midfield role again, then he's too cheap, basically. Even on his scores there, really good. Short and Hooley, we talk about these guys all the time. Someone doesn't like Hooley at Draftstars. They're quite happy to keep his price down a bit there. Interesting stat from last week of the kick-ins, 11 kick-ins, 9 of them were Jaden Short, and Hooley had none, which I can't remember the last time Basher Hooley wouldn't have taken a kick-in. So I don't know if that's just how it played out or a change in approach from the Tigers, but that is concerning if you're looking to play Hooley.
All right. Obviously, they're the 5 that stand out. Those top 5 do stand out. Is there anyone down here from the Tigers that could bop up here? Bolter, Grimes, Asprey, Vlosten.
Well, Vlosten's too cheap still, I think. We're used to him at around 10,000. You see he got the 72 there last week. That's a good return at 8,500. So he's still the value guy for me. But the matchup says play Brisbane, so I'm wary of ending up with 2 Richmond guys unless you're looking to go a bit contrarian there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking the same thing. I can't simply just plug in another Tiger. So I'm going to go up from Baker and Hooley up to Birchall, and hopefully he continues that kick mark and just rack him up against there on the half back line. All right, Hef, let's move on to the mids. And we'll see there's some good options here, especially from the Lions. With the loss of Lockie Neal, both Jared Lyons and Hugh McCluggage have just gone cocoa bananas in the last couple of weeks. So they're being priced up at 16.2 for Lyons and McCluggage at 15.8. Then there's a bit of a drop-off towards the mid-forward options of Zorko Martin, and then another drop-off down here to Robertson and Zach Bailey. So I can pretty much tell that Lyons, McCluggage, and Zorko are going to be highly owned, but I think it's going to be really good chalk to eat for this one.
I think so. We've talked about Richmond giving up uncontested ball, which is sort of linked in with the points they're giving down back. But Hugh McCluggage is a guy who stands out there as out on the wing and really racking up a lot of uncontested possession. Look at those scores. That's unbelievable. McCluggage, he's definitely gone to another level. I think the absence of Neil obviously helps. There's a bit more ball to go around, and Neil's not always the first guy into that little chip sort of around half back, and Lyons, unbelievable scores from the both of them. The thing about this slate, I think you do have the option to fit them both in if you're that way inclined, because we do have some cheaper options down the bottom of the midfield here, Smatho.
Yes, I do. So what I'm going to do straight away, I'm just going to click these two guys straight in, because I know it's chalk, but we do have the value here, because if you go all the way down the bottom, we already touched on it. Jack Ross is back. $5,000 minimum. Obviously, these zeros are really helping keeping his salary down. I know we've got to be more chalk here, but it seems a bit of a no-brainer here.
Well, you look at that 62. We spent an inordinate amount of time talking about Jack Ross for some reason with him and Collier Dawkins, and we've spent a fair bit of time on Richmond in the past few weeks. 5,000 is too cheap. But look at Paddy Nash, even above him, who he's more on the outside. Nash, a couple of sub games there, and then turned up with a 58 last week. One thing I'm sort of thinking about with Brisbane is if you look on our points against tables, Brisbane are giving up points to the contested players more so than the uncontested ball. We've always known Brisbane is not giving up too many points to the backs, and they're hard to score against on the outside, but the contested guys are the ones that you sort of want to look at. So even though we're sort of chasing the price up here on Collier Dawkins, 24 centre bounces last week. He's getting every opportunity there in the midfield. So at 8,500, I don't really think the price is quite caught up yet. And this is a good matchup for a contested player of his type.
Yeah. This is looking rather chalky, but if I want to play Lions and McCluggage, that needs to go into there. But say if you want to pivot from these two guys, let's have a look at the mid-price options. So Zach Bailey, Jack Graham, Reece Matheson. He's been okay.
He's got the role too, Matheson, for sure. If you look last week, he was in the centre bounces a lot again, which I think we're going to touch on Devin Robertson as a forward, are we? Because he's in the same boat.
Yes, so...
Look at last week. Matheson was in there 18 times. Robertson was in there 15 himself, which it bumped Zorko down to 14. But they're definitely giving him that Neil role, Matheson. So he's definitely in play as well.
He's definitely in play, especially if you don't want to play Collier Dawkins. You can also get good leverage on Matheson, which is only $20 more. So if you do have that extra $20, that is a good contrarian play.
One thing I will say against Matheson is Richmond giving up the points to the uncontested rather than the contested players. So, excuse me there. That sort of goes against Matheson, and that sort of brings a guy more like Zach Bailey or something into the fold.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the forwards. Plenty of dual position players here as well. So Zorko Martin, Danaher Bailey. You have to get all the way down to Lincoln McCarthy here at 9,510, who's been the barometer, I would say, for the Lions forward line. So if he's up and about, his fantasy scoring does come up and about. I jumped on Eric Hipwood a couple of weeks too early. A couple of weeks ago, he got a 40. Now he explodes for an 83 against the Gold Coast. So his price has gone up from there. And then you've got the Tiger options of Castagna, Lynch, and Rewalt. And then the guy that I do like down here, as you just touched on as well, at 7,660 is Devin Robertson after his 70 last week. So talk me through the key forwards to start with, and then we might be able to plug some dual position players at the end here.
Absolutely. Well, let's just touch on Robertson first, because the only thing I want to say about him, he's definitely the GPP plays. You see, he's got 3 big results there out of 6 games, and when he doesn't come off, he's probably going to sink your lineup. So he's the risk reward option for sure. Robertson. One little sort of hidden stat we've found is that Brisbane, while they don't give up a lot of points to forwards, they do give up above average amount to the top 3 forwards on the opposition. And this has caught me out a bit before. I've avoided playing a guy against Harris Andrews because we all know him as one of the leading key position defenders in the comp, but people can get points against Harris Andrews, which surprised me. But so on that basis, Tom Lynch, we've talked about having a little bit of exposure to Lynch just because he's got that big ceiling, but you don't want to go all in. And we do know he's got that low floor as well. But I think this is definitely a game where you can use Lynch. Look at those scores. Use him sparingly, but I definitely want to have some exposure. Probably more so than Rewalt. Rewalt doesn't seem to have that big score in him as much as Lynch.
No, he's
there's not that much difference, really.
Not much different. Look, he is Mountain Dew, but gee, that's some rough. You have to really train your brain to get him in your teams there, especially when you've got a midfielder in Robertson below you, and there's some potential.
I think that's the thing. We've got so many options who aren't key forwards that we don't really have to have too much exposure. Charlie Cameron's another one I wanted to talk about because he's flying. If you want to bring his his scores up there, only 63 in that shellacking last week, but a couple of big scores behind that. The thing that concerns me here with Charlie Cameron is Dylan Grimes usually goes to him, and he's if I'm playing Charlie Cameron, I don't want to see Dylan Grimes next to him all day because he's going to have his work cut out for him. So I'm probably more against Charlie Cameron. That's one of the stronger opinions I have of these forwards. But I reckon mid forwards we tend to go a lot with, and I don't see this as being too different again.
Now, I've got enough cash here to either spend up her on Zorko or Dustin Martin. So in a vacuum, if you had to choose one, who would you like to be having in your side here?
Oh, toss a coin, I think. Yeah. But one thing with Dusty is he's probably going to get a heap of time through the middle. We know they do like to split him forward and back. I think because they lack the strength in the midfield, I think you're probably more certain than usual of Dusty getting that a lot of the mid time. Zorko does have Zorko just loves a sniff when the game's over, which Martin's not so much of. So, and I'm just a bit worried that the Brisbane can look to take out Martin, whether they use someone like a Mitch Robinson or if you're coming up against Richmond at this stage of things with their midfield, surely it's got to be on your radar that if we take out Dusty, there's not much behind him.
All right. Well, I've gone with Dustin as your thoughts exactly. Like, I don't see this game to be a junk time kind of fourth quarter blowout. The Tigers showed that last week against the Giants. So I'm going to have Dustin in there and have Devin Robertson. Hopefully he gets a bit more of a go for the Lions this week. So there is my team there. Martin, Robertson, Lyons, McCluggage, Collier, Dawkins, Ross, Vlosten, Birchall, and Toby Nankervis. Now, Hef, do you have any suggestions for little changes here from your side?
Look, that's really close to what I would come up with myself, to be honest. I'd probably look at to change it up. I'd look at Rich over Birch, or I'd look at getting Baker in down back. But yeah, that's maybe swap out Nankervis for McInerney to give you a bit of cash to do that. But yeah, that's if I was put in a single entry, that's definitely around the market where I'd be too, Smatho.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the addition of Jack Ross really opens the premium options on the slate. So if you are going to go for one of those golden tickets tomorrow, look, you can put the side that I've just built in there, but that is an incredible.
You can always use Naish, a cheap guy, if you want to pivot off Ross, because Ross is by no means a lock. Like we do see some cheap guys, but I don't think he's necessarily the case. I think he probably get you 50 odd, which is a good score. But you never know if Richmond got a run on and Nashi was on the outside. He has shown he's got 70, 80 in the past, Nash. So yeah, that's definitely an option too if you want to pivot.
Now, make sure you get to draftstars.com.au to enter the AFL Daily Fantasy Contest for round 10, especially for this match. The Lions versus the Tigers. We'll wrap it up here, Hef. It seemed to be wouldn't say a straightforward slate, but one that has opened up a slate for casual players to get involved in. So I'll thank you for...
We've previewed this game a few times in the past year or so, doesn't it, Smatho? Richmond.
Yes, I felt like I've written those notes before. Then I couldn't. The problem was I couldn't find them earlier today, so I couldn't cheat. So I had to restart them again. So, mate, have fun with your new teeth. Thank you very much for joining the show this evening. As always, if you need any tools or guidance, get to dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. Check out Jesse's article, previews, and also our cheat sheets and data tools for all your AFL daily fantasy needs. Hef and I are back next week, next Thursday, which will be round 11. Big game. I think it's the Bulldogs next week. So Hef's one of the favourite daily fantasy sides. Bulldogs, Melbourne. So huge game. So we will be back here next week for that. Hef, thank you much for your time today.
Thank you, Smatho. Always look forward to it.
We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the next edition of the DFS Down Under Show. We'll catch you then. See you guys.
Thanks, mate. Bye.